our stream right now.
Mm.
All you got to do, there's like where it says "Go Live Preview," like right next to it. Those three bars right there. You could just download it. Once you download it, you can automatically upload it anywhere you want to any of your
Hell yeah.
channels.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we want to welcome everyone to a special edition of Bleacher Report, talking about some Houston Texans football here. I am one part of your show, Ruben Carvillo, joined by always by himself, the man Harley Dugan. You can find him on YouTube at TheLead _ on Houston. Brother, this offseason feels long. It feels long, but I just know that if I put my phone down, if I blink, as soon as I open my eyes, it's going to be the NFL draft and it's going to be training camp. Then we're right back in week one.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm like, man, I got to look at my phone 24/7 because you just don't know when news are going to drop and you don't want to be behind on
Mhm.
it. So, you never want to be behind. So here on Bleacher Report, we try to give you all the latest of what's going on 3 times a week. And so, man, it's a lot of fun. Obviously, the off season is always a dead period for
Mhm.
football, but we try to give y'all as much content as we possibly can. And today, I mean, we had Nick Casario speak with Payne and Pendergast in the morning. Lots of content there,
Mhm.
lots of stuff we can get into and see what happens. Texans, man, it's always fun when your team is in that conversation because you want the season to start immediately after it's done. And right now, the Texans are in that conversation.
I feel like they're in the conversation, but when you really look at the top four teams in the
Mhm,
AFC, there's like a tier list in my mind, right? There's Kansas
mhm.
City. I'll give you Baltimore. I'll give you Buffalo. Then I think there's a line drawn, and then it's teams like the Houston Texans, Los Angeles Chargers. Teams with good quarterbacks, but are just not there yet.
Yeah, I agree with you. When I say you're in that conversation, sure you are, but there is a distance between those three teams you mentioned when it comes to Kansas City,
Mhm.
Baltimore, and Buffalo. And there might be a little distance between two out of the three teams there because Kansas City continues to just find its way into the Super Bowl every single year, the AFC Championship game every single year. Yes, there's distance between us. But I am confident enough to say that my team is in that conversation with CJ Stroud and D'Amico Ryans. I definitely feel like, I mean, hell, we had Luke Kuechly, who was on the Kay Adams
Mhm.
podcast, talk about she asked him if is there any teams that can replicate that Eagles defense and their performance, moving forward against the Chiefs again. And he mentioned not only the Denver Broncos, but he also mentioned our Houston Texans.
Mm.
So that's enlightening to hear that yeah, we still are in this. We still are in this conversation. It ain't dead. Like it ain't over. CJ Stroud's going into his third year, and the Houston Texans have a lot of upside and a lot of potential to swing the franchise around in favor of hopefully landing in that AFC championship appearance and hopefully one day a Super Bowl.
Mm. Well, one of you things that you have to make a decision on is whether or not to bring back free agent wide receiver Stephon Diggs. Now, general manager Nick Casario was on Sports Radio 610 earlier this morning, the flagship here in Houston. He was talking to Sean Pendergast and Seth Payne, and they asked him about Stephon Diggs. And great job by Sean Pendergast for asking the question. And Nick Casario does what he always does, gives them the GM answer. We are open to a reunion with Stephon Diggs. He's talking about loving what he did here in Houston before, unfortunately, he tore his ACL. Talk about his group of people, how he likes working with them as well. We've heard Stephon Diggs himself say, I have a home here in Houston. He said that, I believe, about a month ago when they're asking him.
Mhm.
Um, I feel like there is a possibility, a realistic possibility of Stephon Diggs being a Houston Texan in 2025, but I am open to also seeing what else is out there at the wide receiver spot.
Yeah, I agree with you on both ends of the spectrum here. I definitely can understand why fans would want Stephon Diggs back. I could also understand that maybe we want to look in a different
Mm,
direction. Ultimately, Stephon Diggs, he's 31 years old. He's coming off a knee injury, and that's going to be extremely difficult, highly difficult, I'll say, because there's been numerous players that have came back from this injury,
mhm,
even at his age of 31. You know, he gave you a lot of good stuff in just a short period of time, and not just only on the field but the intangibles.
mhm.
I mean, he was supposed to come in here and be this
Destroy.
cancerous whirling dervish, and it just did not happen. It was anything but that. And that's kudos to the Miko Ryans. That's kudos to the guys in the locker room. That shows a lot of maturity, that
Mhm.
they can bring in somebody that supposedly had that tagline and bring them in here with open arms, and it doesn't affect your locker room. And if anything, I thought he made the locker room better.
He helped.
He was a leader. He was in that locker room. He was the guy. And so I would love to bring back Stephon Diggs. Nick Casario said that the door's always open. That was the quote right there. And the only thing that does make me go, is he did
Stephon
say
Diggs.
open minded.
Mm,
We're open minded, and you know how it is, man. You be in a conversation with someone, and y'all are talking about something that you don't think you can get. Like,
mm,
hey, babe, let's keep an open mind about it. Like, okay, like it maybe not might not happen,
mhm.
but hey, you know what? Let's be positive. Let's keep an open mind about it. So it kind of made me feel like maybe there is a 1 foot out the door with Stephon Diggs. And look, we all said that before the year
Yeah.
started.
When the
We were all
when the
saying
3 years were voided.
that. Yeah, and it makes that restructure in its entirety. I never liked the restructure. I didn't
Mm,
mind the trade, but it was the restructure that I had a problem with, and ultimately now it's rearing its ugly head back at you, because now you now could only have Stephon Diggs for, what was it, 6, 7
mhm.
games?
And you
That
traded
sucks.
out of the
Yeah.
first round. You traded out of pick 23. You traded that away to Buffalo. Uh, I'm sorry, I think you traded back with Minnesota, right?
Yes.
And then you sent that second round pick to the Bills for Stephon Diggs. Well, the Minnesota Vikings, they traded that first round pick to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and that pick eventually became Brian Thomas Jr. out of
Mm,
LSU, someone who both me and Harley were wanting the Houston Texans to take, to select at pick 23. He should be a Houston Texan right now. But I don't mind that you went out there and made a decision to go get Stephon Diggs, because up to the ACL, Stephon Diggs was an Iron Man in this league. And he was coming
yep.
off of, I think, 4 straight years of 1,000+ yards. We were very excited for Stephon Diggs. And I always go back to the training camp, man, where me and you were in the ring, got completely soaked. And, Stephon Diggs, he was the first Texan to say we need to be better that day. And what happened? They started playing with more energy. They started getting things happen. We saw Stephon Diggs working out with players before and after practice, Harley, guys that
Mhm.
didn't even make the 53-man roster. Stephon Diggs was anything but but a cancer to this Houston Texans locker room. And I always say this: if it takes one guy to break your locker room, you didn't have one to begin with. Stephon Diggs right now, right in the media with a rapper Cardi B. They've been going to parties and things like that. I don't know, man. I obviously love the name. I want to finish the story. I know CJ Stroud and Stephon Diggs are very, I mean, he's close with a lot of people, man, here, on this Houston Texans team. Just maybe you just wash your hands and say, unfortunately, it didn't work out. We took a chance and we got to go somewhere else.
That's probably what ends up happening, and that's a unfortunate part, like you said. Considering that at the 23rd pick, Brian Thomas Jr. got selected, and it was somebody that me and you were clamoring about, and a lot of fans here in Houston were also wondering, like, even just a wide receiver in general that they were wanting. Whether it was Brian Thomas Jr. or not, there was a lot of fan and there was a lot of buzz about drafting a wide receiver, and it didn't happen. It is
Mm,
what it is. Again, ultimately, I don't have a problem with the trade. I had more so a problem with restructuring it because then it voided everything and you only had him for 1 year. And we all knew that, oh, he's only here for 1 year. Well, he's only going to be here for 1 year.
Hmm.
Now, yeah, things change. And you did mention that, about a month ago or 2 months ago, he talked about him having a home here in Houston on, I believe it was Good Morning Football with Kyle Brandt and Peter Schrager. So he did talk about that. You can take that with a grain of salt. A lot of players, it is what it is. A lot of players buy homes whenever they move to a different city or whatever. They got the money to do so. Stephon Diggs has the money to do so. You mentioned him. He was an Iron Man. I mean, he's a workhorse. He doesn't get hurt. Like the majority of his career, he's never been hurt. Going all the way to college, really, in Maryland, where he had some pretty bad injuries there and made him fall in the draft. But ultimately, he's always stayed healthy. He does very good. And I still would not mind the Texans to say, hey, you know what? Maybe we can sign
Hmm.
another 1 year deal with Stephon Diggs. Let's finish this story. Have him come back and team up with CJ Stroud, Joe Mixon, and company. It's not like the players don't want him back. They spoke
Hmm.
very highly of Stephon Diggs. So I would expect that illegal tampering that doesn't come out to definitely be playing behind the scenes here with the Texans and Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, I think this is going to be fun to see where he ends up. But wish Stephon Diggs the very best in the future as he enters free agency. Another move that happened today, Hardy, the Houston Texans, they got some more cap space. Now, do you have any like more information before I bring up the tweet on what initially happened that got the cap up? Give me 1 second.
So something about the NFL, I'd have to look it up again, but they went. I know they had a projection
Mm,
that didn't necessarily happen. That projection exceeded what they were expecting. So yeah, and the exceeding it went all the way up to like 281 million, I want to say.
mm.
So that made up a lot of cap space for a lot of teams. And it just so happened, obviously we're one of them and helpful to everybody. The NFL salary cap could be as high as 281.5 million per team for this season. And that came from Ian Rappaport. Anybody that wants to know the Texans specifically, go ahead, check out Texans Cap on Twitter. He does a hell of a job covering the Houston Texans and anything salary cap details, information you want to know. I'm pretty
Mm.
sure you can ask him and he will answer for you. Great guy. So make sure y'all check his account out immediately.
Yeah, so the Houston Texans, they got a couple more millions in the bank. They could also make some moves, Harley, that could potentially net themselves another 30 to 40 million dollars, and that is with some contract restructure. There's four Houston Texans on the list that we need to get this done with. One of them, Nico Collins. I have no issue with the Nico Collins restructure. Daniil Hunter, his contract was built to be restructured also. And then the article here brings up Laramie Tunsil and Titus Howard. So guys who we've been talking about the past couple of weeks about restructuring their deals to bring more money to the Houston Texans. I do see, three out of the four doing it. Maybe Laramie or Titus Howard, they don't want to restructure, but I think three out
Yeah.
of these four Houston Texans get it done and we're able to bring some talent to this Houston Texans team. You better do it quick before you have to make CJ Stroud one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. But at this time last week, the Texans only had $3 million to work with. Now they have seven, and then they could potentially have up to $40 million in just a couple of weeks before free agency begins.
Yeah, I mean that would be outstanding. You mentioned Nico
Outstanding.
Collins, Daniel Hunter, LT, and Titus Howard. LT they've restructured many times before,
No issue.
so I'm sure he understands the conversations. And buddy, you're the one that was one of the captains on this team and seemed to be one of the voices for this Houston Texans team that possibly led Bobby Slowick on the way out. So
Oh, you think so?
I definitely think so. And I mean, even in an article, it was implied, not didn't mention a name or anything, but they mentioned the captains. and one of the captains on this team is Laramie Tunsil.
It sounded
So
like a Joe Mixon to me, man.
it did feel like a Joe Mixon as well because he is pretty just
Pretty
bland.
adamant, yeah.
It's just right out there, you know. So yeah, I definitely feel that it could have been one of them two, but why I say LT is because, hey, man, if you're a guy that's wanting to say, hey, we need the OC to move on because we need to do better, well, that to me shows me that you care about winning. And if you care about winning, then you would be willing to do a restructure. And we've seen him do this before. So, again, this shouldn't be any foreign concept to
Mhm.
him. Titus Howard, I don't know. I don't know if Titus will do it. I don't know. And I know him and Laramie are tight. Maybe Laramie has a conversation with him about the restructure and everything. But Nico Collins, Daniel Hunter's a veteran. But Nico Collins is a team first guy.
Mm.
Nico Collins does not care. Like he is one of those guys that he don't have no ego. He is selfless and he is definitely going to put the team first. So yeah, I can see both. I could see 2 out of the 4, 3 out of the 4 happening.
Mhm.
And who knows with Shaq Mason being cut potentially, that could be someone that frees up some money for the Texans. We obviously know that they have to improve at the
Mhm.
right guard position.
Yeah, which is why me and you both talked about someone like Trey Smith from Kansas City. If you have $47 million to work with in free agency, you could potentially get that done. But first, you got to take care of Derek Stingley. You got to make him one of the highest paid cornerbacks in the NFL. Derek Stingley himself said that he wants to be a Houston Texan forever. Derek Stingley, I think Harley is just getting started. I think
Yeah.
he can end up with 2, 3, 4 more first team all pros, second team all pros. Dude, Derek Stingley. Surprised he doesn't talk a lot of mess. I feel like if he did, trash talk, his brand would be even bigger than what it is now. But Derek Stingley, that has to be your priority number one in the offseason, especially if you do get this, 30, $40 million of cash extra.
Yeah, Derek Stingley is going to be the highest paid cornerback in the NFL. We all know that. Derek Stingley was named to the All Pro of his first team All Pro. Congratulations to Stingley, well deserved. Finally healthy and got to show the NFL world that last year wasn't just a fluke. I can go out there and do it again. And damn it, did he do it in a big way? He was a shutdown corner for you for the entirety of the year. And not only him, but Jalen Petrie. Jalen Petrie is
Mm,
someone that I'm not saying you're going to break the bank on him, but he is somebody that you
you
would
got to
have to
make a
pay.
decision.
And he fits the role perfectly. I know Texans fans are not happy or excited that he is a nickel corner playing in that nickel role. It's tough to put a
Nickel
position on him.
linebacker role.
Yeah, because he's not a nickel and he's not, he plays the star position. That's what he did at Baylor, and that's what got him Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. And D'Amico Ryan said, copy, paste. This is what you're going to do.
Mm.
This is what you're great at. Let me do it here in Houston. And we saw Jalen Petrie go back to play better than he has his whole career
Yeah.
since his rookie year. His
He was
rookie year
better
was
than year
pretty,
one. Like his
yeah.
he was ferocious. I'm sorry, keep on
Mhm.
going. Yeah, but he was entirely
No, yeah.
different.
Definitely. I mean, I'm agreeing with you. He had all the adjectives you could think of. He was ferocious. He was attacking the line of scrimmage with authority. He was finishing his tackles.
Mhm.
Something that we harped on last year was he did not wrap up enough. He did not finish his tackles enough. And man, he just went in there with swarming to the football and doing his thing and did exactly what D'Amico Ryans wanted him to do. So he deserves his money as well too. I don't know how much he'd be looking at. I don't know how that works because he's kind of a positionless player.
Mm.
So does he get grouped into the safeties? Does he get grouped into the nickels? Like it's all about where his agent is going to look at who makes the most money, slot corners or safeties.
Oh,
And
slot
whoever
corners, right?
makes
You have to think.
I would think so. And so you would think that Petrie is going to be asking that, hey, man, I was one of the best nickel corners for y'all and for in the NFL last year before I got hurt. The defense, obviously, took a toll without Jalen Petrie. Still played at a high level,
Mhm.
but with Jalen Petrie, there's something different, So, yeah, he's going to deserve his money as well too. And in the following year, you have obviously C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson that you got to start thinking about.
That's going to be big. And I cannot wait to see how that plays out. Because let's say Will Anderson Jr. goes out there and gets another Pro Bowl nomination, another double-digit sack season. He's in conversation for defensive MVP. Then you got CJ Stroud taking a leap forward in year three, reasserting himself back into that top 10, top 5 conversation. You are about to be heavily invested into two guys, and you need to make the right decisions, because I don't want to be in a situation where I have to choose between either Will Anderson Jr. or CJ Stroud,
No,
because you know where
that
I'm
won't happen.
going, and that's the quarterback.
Yeah, but that won't happen. There's that just won't happen. They will find a way. They
They're the
always
guys.
find a
They're the
way.
guys.
You're not losing any both. You're not losing one of them at all. 0% chance of that happening. If you lose, if you went with your hypothetical, D'Amico Ryans might lose it, because that's D'Amico Ryans' guy. That Will Anderson is his guy.
Mm.
He's the reason why the Texans traded up and got Will Anderson. That 0% chance you lose both.
Love it. I can't wait, man. A lot of big decisions coming up in terms of who we have to play. I was watching
Mhm.
some of your videos, man, and one conversation or topic that I wanted to bring up was Devontae Adams. According to
Man.
reports, the New York Jets will be moving on from Aaron Rodgers and
Mhm.
Devontae Adams. Now, Devontae Adams, you would have to trade for. Devontae
Yes.
Adams has 2 years left on his deal. So I feel like this is like the same situation that you were in last year with Stephon Diggs when you made the trade, getting a veteran wide receiver, someone who has been healthy, someone who has been the best of the very best. When you're talking about Devontae Adams, man, you're talking about a Hall of Fame wide receiver. And if you remember, both Devontae Adams and CJ Stroud have spoke highly of each other. All the way back on Micah Parsons' podcast, he asked CJ Stroud, put your best 11 on the whiteboard, and I'll put my best 11 on the whiteboard. Offense versus defense. The first wide receiver that CJ Stroud put out there was Devontae Adams.
Hmm.
Devontae Adams, I believe, was on the Up and Adams podcast a couple of years ago when he was a Las Vegas Raider, and said that he told the front office to trade up and go get CJ Stroud.
Yeah.
2 years left on his deal, right before you have to make CJ Stroud the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. You are in win now mode. Why not?
I like the move. I really do. Devontae Adams is a 9-time All Pro, 6-time first team, 3-time second team. He is I would say he's a future Hall of Famer, if not borderline, and he has been a workhorse as well. He is an Iron Man. He doesn't get hurt at
Mm-hmm.
all. Even this previous year, with all of the fiasco that was going on between the Raiders and then going to the Jets, Devontae Adams still ended up with 1,000 yards receiving. 5 out of the last 7 years, he's had 100+ catches. So Devontae Adams, even at 32, there is no dip in his game. There
Mm,
is no, it's not something where you can go, man, is he falling off? Like, some other, maybe like a Debo Samuel, makes me wonder sometimes whether or not it's if the Texans should go after him. But
mm,
Devontae Adams is still, doing this at a very high level. And to pair him up with Nico Collins would be awesome. You're talking about a dynamic duo right there at the wide receiver position, and immediately you have solved your wide receiver
mm,
position, and you can go into the draft and maybe get another receiver, but not so much in day one, maybe day two, and take a look into one of those guys, maybe a Jack Beck. Well, that would be very interesting in day two. But you know, I don't you don't really have to trade for him, because when it comes down to it, he has $28 million, almost $30 million.
mm,
All of it is non-guaranteed. So the
mm,
Jets can cut him and free up immediately $30 million in cap space. So you could go out there and actually have Devontae Adams in the free agency market. I think he's going to be entered into this roulette wheel of wide
Mm.
receivers that is going to be out there on the open market. Devontae Adams is going to be right in the middle of everything. He's going to have a market. My
Yeah.
only thing, my only thing with Devontae Adams is it just doesn't feel like he would be a Houston Texan.
You don't
Devontae
think so?
Adams, I just and I'm not saying this as a shot to the Texans,
Mm.
but does Devontae Adams view us as a Super Bowl contender? And then second, I just feel like he's a West Coast guy.
Mm.
Like I
You think he
definitely
goes?
feel like
Okay.
I just think he's a West Coast guy. I think the San Francisco 49ers could make a move at him, considering that they're going to be losing Debo Samuel. They already told him that they're looking to trade him immediately. I know they extended Brandon Ayuk. They still have a rookie contract and Ricky Pearsall last year. They have the ability to maybe get a Devontae
Mm.
Adams who is more of a legitimate number one wide receiver. If you still want to debate whether or not Ayuk is a wide receiver one or not, to me, that makes a bunch of sense. The Niners took a big step back. This could
Mm.
be them taking a big step forward with Devontae Adams potentially going over there. You also have the Denver Broncos and seeing what they can do as well. Like he just screams West Coast to me. So I just don't. I just for some reason I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, I don't see it happening either, but I hope we're in the conversation. I
Yeah,
hope
that'd be
that,
cool.
like we're seeing Devontae Adams do what every, wide receiver does, flirt with the Houston Texans. Kind of what Saquon Barkley did last year before he ended up signing with the Philadelphia Eagles, flirting with the Houston Texans. But I mean, you see Devontae Adams here, you're not asking him to be that dominant number one wide receiver that he's always been his entire career. We got number 12. We got Nico Collins opposite side
Mhm.
of you. And if healthy, both of these guys will have 1,000 yards. Both of these guys will have 5+ touchdowns. You talk about what it does for Joe Mixon, Dawson Schultz. And
Ooh, yeah.
then you tie in new offensive coordinator Nick Caley, what he can potentially get done with Devontae Adams. I feel like the Texans should be viewed as a team that is trying to take the next step forward. You brought up the West Coast, which is why we heard some reports. Maybe he goes to Los Angeles. Maybe he goes with the Rams. I've seen San Francisco also. I've seen the Chargers
Yeah.
also as well. But, right, damn, all West Coast.
That's why he screams West Coast to me. He came from Fresno State with Derek Carr, which is in California, so that's the whole reason he went to the Raiders was because of Derek Carr. The only reason he went to the Jets was because of Aaron Rodgers. The only reason he was with the Packers because they drafted him. Ultimately, when it came down to it, the one team he really wanted to go to was Oakland. And Oakland is in California. I expect Devontae Adams to go to the West Coast.
Mm. Well, can't wait to find out what happens, man. We are less than 30 days away from NFL free agency. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank everyone who was a part of this episode with us. How do you feel about the new Bleacher Report app, man? Are you liking it?
Yeah, I am. I am. I know that we are going to be moving back to being a vertical. I know we're going to be moving back to being what was it? Is it vertical? No, horizontal. Excuse me.
Okay.
We're going to be back to moving horizontal, and it is what it is. They try some stuff out. Hey, it didn't work on their end. It's all good. Bleacher Report's done a fantastic job. I love the app. I love everything that they're including. You can easily find us
Mm-hmm.
immediately. All you got to
Yeah,
do is
Twitter,
search up Houston
Instagram, TikTok.
Texans. Yeah, you can immediately find Houston, search up Houston Texans, and it will pop up every Houston Texans content, and you will see both myself and you
Mm-hmm.
immediately. So don't, if y'all miss it, hey, you can just go to the Bleacher Report app and search it up real quick and take some time out of your day. Maybe you're doing something, have us there as background noise. We love it, man. Appreciate every single one of y'all that wants to watch us and continue to grow the content.
Absolutely, guys. We will see you on Friday. As always, me and Harley breaking down the latest Houston Texans news, rumors, and updates. Guys, do us both a favor. Have a real blessed rest of your day.